Hi there, Tori Hallowell here, coming at you live. This week I am talking about loneliness. Getting a little vulnerable, a little real and raw with you all this week. As you know, I am a new entrepreneur. I run my own coaching business where I coach and mentor and help young professionals who are feeling burnt out, lost, stuck in their careers, in their lives, and just don't know what to do. That's something I struggled with in my past career, and I'm set out on this mission to help other people who are experiencing exactly what I went through. I don't want anyone to feel like they are unsupported or alone in this world. But the truth is that this year, this fall in particular, as I left my job and branched out to start my own business, one thing I was not prepared for was the loneliness I was going to feel. And it was at times overwhelming. And I've been pretty open about it with really close friends and family when I've been struggling with loneliness. And I was surprised to learn last week that NPR came out with a big segment on their podcast On Point, talking about the loneliness epidemic and how this is a real issue that is affecting millions of people. And so I really wanted to talk about loneliness this week with everyone because I think it's something that we all struggle with from time to time. I think sometimes it is natural to experience loneliness, and that's okay, but it is becoming a huge issue across all ages, all generations, and it's turning into a really big mental, emotional, and physical health issue. So I really wanted to address it, talk about it, and then offer my support to anyone who is feeling lonely themselves. So loneliness, really what it is, it's a combination of a bunch of different stuff. It's social isolation, and it's the actual feeling of being alone. And so we can experience loneliness, when we're by ourselves, which is what I feel because I no longer have coworkers. I work from home, and so that's how I experience loneliness. But you can also feel loneliness when you're surrounded by people. If you don't feel, like that you have a meaningful connection with them, or that your interests are lined up, or your values are lined up, you can feel alone even when you're surrounded by people. And it's just really important to know that. And so loneliness happens when we are lacking purpose and meaning in our lives. And that can be through work, through our connections and our relationships. We are a social creature, and so we really value social interactions and mutual beneficial relationships. So when we don't have that, we start to feel lonely. And it also often includes, when we feel a lack of self-worth, when we feel unloved or unlovable, and when we suffer from low self-esteem, that can also be a huge contributor to loneliness. I have some notes, so I'm going to stay on track. And so, like I mentioned, loneliness, especially now that there's a huge concern around loneliness, there are a lot of health implications if you are chronically feeling lonely. So loneliness leads to an increase in early mortality. It leads to an increase in diabetes, chronic health disease, depression, and anxiety. And these are all related to stress and burnout. And so there's lots of issues that we need to really be aware for and prepping for so that we can help, ward off all of these diseases. These are all preventable diseases, and we can work to make sure that we don't have to deal with them later in life. Now, there is a reason there's been an increase in loneliness. There is a reason why NPR is talking about this being an epidemic. It's because there's been a huge significant change and increase in it over the last few years. And a couple of the leading factors are geographic isolation. We are now moving away from family, from communities we've built up through our middle school, high school, college age careers to, focus on ourselves and our career and, that next opportunity. So we are more spread out than we ever have before. A lot of us are working from home, myself included, right? We enjoy the freedom and flexibility of being able to work from home, but it means that we're losing those in-person connections and relationships with coworkers, with peers, with our bosses, and even just face-to-face interactions. More and more of us are also, putting off having families, getting settled down with significant others and kids, and so more and more of us are living on our own. And living alone can actually increase your loneliness because you don't have people to interact with, to hang out with, and to have those connections and relationships with. And lastly, you're not going to be surprised by this one, but technology. The increase in technology has really led to an increase in loneliness. We are totally plugged in all the time, 24/7 to work, to our emails, and to, of course, social media. And you might feel like you have these meaningful connections because you have so many Facebook friends or Instagram followers, or professional connections through LinkedIn, but in fact, those aren't in-person meaningful connections, right? Those are social media connections, and there is a huge distinction and difference between the two. So getting caught up in social media and kind of, leads to oftentimes self-comparison and that increase in lack of self-worth, feeling unlovable. You're comparing how many likes you got on this picture versus someone else. And so really being too caught up in technology and social media has really led to an increase in loneliness. And what happens is that when we are less and less connected from people, when we aren't prioritizing meaningful relationships and connections, and when we get caught up in technology, we actually start to lose the ability to communicate and to have meaningful communications with people. That's a skill. That's an ability that we've learned over the years. And when we start to not prioritize that, we start to lose the ability to communicate effectively and purposefully with people. How scary is that? That is scary. So that should be a wake-up call that we need to be proactive in having relationships with actual people. The other thing to keep in mind is that we are a very success-driven society. We really focus on career success, academic success, lifestyle success, social media success, how many connections you have, how many likes you're receiving, and so on. And when we become very success-driven, we don't recognize that it doesn't matter how high you are up on the corporate ladder, or how great your grades are, or how many connections you have on LinkedIn. Success doesn't prevent loneliness. It often actually adds to it, because we become so focused on one issue, on one goal, that we have let our relationships and our connections with real people go. We no longer focus on them. We no longer prioritize them. We're so focused on our career, on our academics. And so what happens is that we lose those connections. And when we lose those connections, it doesn't matter if you're at the top, no connections, leads to an increase in loneliness, and then all of those other health effects that come with it. And so, that's something to keep in mind. It's important to know that we as humans, we are evolved as a species that really thrives on social connection. That's how we've survived. That's how we've grown as a society. So we really need community. We need that connection. We need that meaningful relationship. When we feel connected, when we have that sense of self-worth and that we're giving towards a cause to a relationship and we're receiving in return, we feel supported, we feel understood, we feel protected and safe and secure. And that's really important for us as humans. A lot of this is subconsciously. So when we are not feeling a part of a community, when we are feeling disconnected from people, we often feel threatened and vulnerable. We kind of morph into that flight or fight response, and that leads to an increase in stress and an increase in released cortisol in our bodies. And chronic stress leads to burnout, and this leads to all of those diseases that we have already talked about, including exhaustion, anxiety, depression, heart disease, and diabetes. And obesity, like all of these issues are all interrelated. So it's really important to recognize, that loneliness and stress are connected and correlated. Excuse me. It's also really important to know, and this is what I struggled with this year, is that we have a lot of, as a society, we have stigma attached with talking about loneliness. We're taught to grow up to be strong, self-sufficient, independent humans and people and women and men. And because of that belief, we often struggle to reach out and talk to people when we are feeling lonely, when we're struggling with this issue, which is something that we all do struggle with from time to time. But, some of us struggle with it more often and more regularly than others. And we really have a hard time asking for help, connecting with people, talking about it. So I'm here to tell you right now, please don't keep this inside. Please reach out. If you feel like you have no friends or family to talk to about this comfortably, that's okay. Reach out to a coach like myself. Reach out to a therapist. Reach out to a mentor. Reach out to anyone, because just getting out of your own head and talking about these issues can make a world of difference. So I'm here telling you right now, do not be shy. Do not be afraid. Please send me a message. Let's talk about whatever it is you're struggling with. If it's loneliness, I'm here for you. I want to be here for you. You're lovable. You're worthy of everything this world has to offer you. So please do not struggle with loneliness alone. And I really, really mean that. And lastly, sorry, I have a little bit of a frog in my throat, a little tickle. I really just want to remind you that social media is not the answer. And so when you are feeling lonely, when you feel alone and you're struggling with these different emotions, do not turn to social media, because that is really, going to suck you in, and it's going to remind you, that you, in the moment, maybe you are alone, and that's okay. But social media is just going to lead to the lack of self-worth. It's going to lead to comparison, judgmental thinking about yourself. It's going to make you possibly feel jealous, unworthy, unlovable, all of those emotions. And so social media, it's a suck. It's not there to boost you up at times when you're already feeling a little bit low and down. So don't turn to social media. There are so many other things you can do to distract yourself, make yourself feel good and lovable, and present in this life. And so for those of you who are struggling with loneliness and are looking for the meaningful connections and that meaningful relationship and purpose, there are a couple things that you can easily do. First, reach out to the friends and family that you do have in your life, even if they're far away. Make a plan to go see them. Stop putting it off. Find a long weekend. Figure out a Skype date if that's not possible to see someone in person, but reconnect with them and be purposeful about it. Reach out to coworkers. Go out for a drink. If those aren't options, if you're living in a new place and you're really missing that social interaction, then join a meetup, join a book group, find something that interests you, that speaks to you, one of your interests and your passions, because there you'll find like-minded people. You'll have some things in common. It'll be easy to start communicating and building new and meaningful and purposeful relationships. Join a church group. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not religious, if you're spiritual or whatever, but joining some sort of community that church provides is going to allow you to meet new people and build new relationships. Join exercise classes. Volunteer is huge. Giving back to others and helping others automatically increases your feeling of self-worth, and that you can contribute positively and meaningfully to the world around you. So I always say, give a helping hand whenever you can. Seek it out, volunteer, give back. That's going to boost your spirit, boost your confidence, and you're going to start to build connections and relationships through that. So there's lots of ways that you can prevent loneliness, that you can be aware of it, that you can start taking steps towards limiting its effect in your life. And so I really want to encourage you, reach out, start building those meaningful connections. When you do have that opportunity to meet up with someone in real life for a coffee date or for a drink, put your phone away. If you're on your phone or if it's on the table when you're meeting with someone, you are not fully present, you're not fully engaged in the moment, you are distracted. So put technology away, unplug, and reconnect with real human connections, and this will fight off the loneliness epidemic that is starting to plague all of us. And I want to encourage you one more time, if you are struggling with loneliness, or if you know someone who is struggling with loneliness, have them please reach out to myself or any other professional who is there to listen to them and to help them. Let's not struggle alone, and let us reconnect with one another. So I hope this video has taught you something, has let you know that you are definitely not alone. Someone is here for you, and let's just continue to make this world as positive and kind as we possibly can. Thank you. Have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you guys next week.